There are no right or wrong questions, just questions. Yes, there are no right or wrong questions, just questions. And you see, questions are more important than answers. Great evening, guys. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade. Yes, I am Mr. Upgrade, and I'm super excited to have you join us here today in another interesting conversation that we're going to be having on the Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade. You see, on the Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade, we basically get to do this every Sundays from 7 p.m. through to 8 p.m. We basically get to do this conversation and we basically focus on four things. Number one, we get to take your questions. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to send in the questions and we'll gladly take them. Number two, we get to share with you the Upgrade Mastery tip for the week. And for this week, the Upgrade Mastery tip for this week is question. Yes, question. Number three, we get to connect, network, and bond because we understand how important it is for us to connect because we got to join the Upgrade Live with Mr. from across the globe. So it's important that we get to connect, network, and bond, right? And number four, we get to have fun. Yes, I strongly believe that if learning is not fun, there is no learning at all. So we got to have fun while we do the Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade. So I'm super excited to have you join us here again today on this conversation because of what we're going to be talking about today. So if you are ready for the conversation, I want you to type in the comments, I am ready. Yes, type I am ready, and then we'll begin the conversation in proper because I really want you to be ready for what's coming because the truth is this: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? Okay. Now, while we wait for you to send in your questions on the Upgrade Live with Mr. Upgrade, we also begin with our basic 5 questions. Now, these 5 questions help us to lay the foundation. It helps us to begin the conversation in a way that you get to truly understand what it is that we are talking about so that you can have a better understanding, have better insight on the conversations that we are having. So we're going to begin with our basic 5 questions so that we can set the ball rolling and we can set the tone for this conversation that we're going to be having today, right? Okay, so let's begin. Question number 1, right? What is question? You know, people talk about, oh, you need to ask questions, you need to be able to ask questions and all of those things. Or when there's a presentation, when they're done, they say, do you have any question? What exactly is question? When you hear the word question, what is it that comes to your mind? What exactly is question? What is question? I'll tell you, right? Before I tell you, tell me, what is question? When you hear question, what does it elicit in you? What does it bring to your mind? What exactly comes to mind? What rings a bell when you hear the word question? What is question? I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you a few seconds, actually, so you can tell me what question is. And please don't go to ChatGPT. Don't use any of your AI tools. Just, what is question? Right? What is question? Think about it. You see, question, it is a statement of inquiry that helps you gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. That is question. Question is a statement of inquiry, right? That helps you gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. So literally, question brings you to a cup, clarity, understanding, perspective. It is a statement of inquiry that help you to gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. This, my friend, this is question. So when someone is asking question, they are making a statement of inquiry that will help them to gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. So that is question. Are you getting this? Does this make sense? Great. Now, question number 2 is, who's responsible for question? Who's responsible to ask question? Who's responsible to want to know by asking question? Who's responsible for question? The answer is simple. You are responsible for question. No one else is responsible for question but you. You are responsible for question. Are you getting this? Is this making sense to you? So you are responsible for question. So you ask question or you do not ask question is entirely up to you. So you are responsible for question. Question number 3. Why question? Why do we need to ask question? It's very simple. Number 1, to gain clarity. Number 2, to gain understanding. And number 3, to gain perspective. These are 3 reasons why you ask question. Are you getting this? So you ask questions so you can gain clarity, to have understanding, and to have perspective. Because when you ask questions, this is what happens to you. You gain clarity on the subject. You have understanding on the subject. Now you have perspective on the subject because you asked question. Are you getting this? Does this make sense to you? So 3 reasons why question. Number 1, clarity. Number 2, perspective. Number 2, understanding. And then number 3, perspective. Now question number 4. What are the benefits of question? What are the benefits when you ask question? What are the things you stand to gain when you ask question? I'll tell you 3 benefits of question. Number 1, you're able to learn. You are able to navigate. And you are able to lead and manage. So if you ask question, you are able to learn. Right? You are able to navigate. You are able to lead and manage when you ask question. Number 2 benefit of asking question is that you are able to think critically. You know, one of the basic things that humans need to do is to be able to think. And beyond thinking, you should be able to think critically. That's why it's called critical thinking. Now, asking questions helps you to gain critical thinking awareness. Are you getting this? So you are not on surface level. You are able to do critical thinking because you ask questions. So the benefit of asking questions is that it helps you to arrive at critical thinking. Why is this like this? Critical thinking. Are you getting this? Is this making sense for you? Now, the 3rd benefit of question is that you're able to create and innovate. Now, with more questions you ask, the more creative you become. The more questions you ask, the more innovative you become. So you're able to create and innovate simply by asking questions. So see, there's so much benefits to questions. And this is why it's important that you get to ask questions. 3 benefits of questions. There are many benefits, but I'll just share this 3 with you. Number 1, you are able to learn, navigate, and lead and manage. Number 2, critical thinking. And then number 3, create and innovate. Now, question number 5. When is the best time to ask questions? Remember, I said there's no right or wrong questions, just questions. So when is the best time for you to ask questions? When is the best time for you to ask questions? Like you already know, the last best time for anything was yesterday. The next best time for anything is now. So now is the best time for you to ask questions. Literally, now is the best time for you to ask questions. And that's why we'll be glad if at the end of this conversation you have a lot of questions to ask, because now is the best time for you to ask questions. Are you getting this? Does this make sense for you? Great. Now, these are our 5 questions, right? We've told you what question is. We've told you who's responsible for questions. We told you why questions. We told you the benefits of questions. And we told you the best time to ask questions. See these guys. The one who asks questions is only a fool for 5 seconds. But the one who doesn't ask questions is a fool for life. So which would you rather be? I'd rather be a fool for 5 seconds. And then after that, I gain clarity, understanding, and perspective than to be a fool for life because I refuse to ask questions. That's why I say that the answer you seek is in the question that you fail to ask. The answer that you seek is in the question that you fail to ask. So this is why it's important that you get to ask questions. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? So you must ask question. Even the good book says, ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door shall be opened. Matthew 7:7. So that lets you know it's important that you ask. And one easy way to ask is to ask question. And like I told you, there are no right or wrong questions. They are just questions. And questions are more important than answers. You getting this? Is this making sense? So let's get into the conversation proper. Let's talk about question. Let's get into the conversation proper. Let's talk about question, right? Question. Question, right? Let's break down this conversation. Let's really talk about it. Question. 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 What does it mean? What does it represent? What does it stand for? What exactly is question? Let's break it down. I've already told you that question is a statement of inquiry that help you gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. Now let's break down question itself. Question. The Q in question is a quest. Yes. Question begins as a quest, wanting to know, wanting to learn, wanting to understand, wanting to gain clarity. Is always a quest. So if you don't have that quest, you will not ask question. Are you getting this? If you don't have that quest, you will not ask question because you want to know. You don't want to be living in ignorance. You want to know. The quest to learn, the quest to know, the quest to gain clarity, the quest to have understanding, the quest to have perspective. It starts with the quest. Are you getting this? So the Q in question is quest. It starts with the quest. I want to know. I want to learn. I want to understand. The quest. Right? The U in question is understanding. Understanding. Now, questions are more important than answers. So when I ask questions, I gain understanding. I have clarity. I have perspective. It makes me now know what I didn't know. It makes me now understand what I didn't understand. There's a level of clarity that comes because you ask questions. So it gives you understanding as against when you don't ask questions. So question produces for you an understanding. Before the question, you did not understand fully. After the question, you now have a better understanding. So question gives you understanding. Are you getting this? Does this make sense to you? Great. Now, the E in question is exposure. Now, what do we mean by exposure? Now, question exposes you. It gives you exposure to a new paradigm. It gives you exposure to a new way of thinking. It gives you exposure to critical thinking. It gives you exposure to things you were not previously exposed to. So if there's a presentation, for instance, after the presentation, you have now been exposed to some things. Asking questions at that point give you more exposure. So there may have been things that the speaker or the presenter may have glossed over. But asking questions draw the attention back to those areas and they give you more exposure in those areas. So you see, questions give you exposure. And I like to tell people this all the time, that what you know, you know. What you don't know, you don't know. Are you getting this? What you know, you know. What you don't know, you don't know. But asking questions help you to know what you don't know, because now it gives you an exposure. Does this make sense to you? It gives you an exposure. So now you know what you don't know. The S in question is satisfaction. When you ask question, you are then satisfied because now you've gained understanding, you've gained clarity, you've gained perspective. Now you are satisfied. Now you know what you didn't know. Now you've gained exposure that you didn't have before. So it gives you a level of satisfaction when you ask question. So the S in question is satisfaction. The T in question is truth. Nothing exposes you to truth like when you ask question. You know, Jesus asked the disciples, who do men say that I am? And they said, some said you are John the Baptist, some said you are Elijah. Jesus said, who do you say that I am? And then Peter, by the leading of the Spirit, says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father that's in heaven. That question exposed Peter and the other disciples to the truth of the identity of Christ. So questions always lead you to truth. Questions always lead you to truth. Because as you dig deep, you go beyond the surface, you get to the roots. Questions lead you to truth. So the T in question is truth. Want to know truth? Ask questions. Keep asking questions. You'll get to the bottom of it. You'll get to the truth and to the roots when you ask questions. So the T in question is truth. The I in question is introspection. Question helps you to introspect about yourself, about your life. Why am I here? Why am I at this point in my journey? Why am I at this level in my life? Introspection. Question yourself. It gives you introspection. You know, the prodigal son said to himself, why do I languish and die of hunger when the servants in my father's house have enough to eat and to spare? That was introspection. That was question. You see that in Luke 15. That was question he asked himself. No one advised him. The question he asked himself gave him introspection. He said, I will arise and go back to my father and tell him I'm no longer worthy to be called your son, but make me one of your hired servants. But it was the introspection to know that the servants in his father's house have enough to eat and to spare, and yet he is here, lavishing, languishing in hunger, feeding with swine. So that question was introspection. So sometimes you need to ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I in this toxic relationship? Why? Introspection. Question. Question brings about introspection. Right? You look inward. You introspect. Are you getting this? The O in question is opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to evolve. Question is an opportunity. And see, when the prodigal son had that introspect, he went back home. And the rest is history. That opportunity he didn't know was still available for him. The father didn't make him a servant. He restored him to sonship. He never knew that opportunity still existed for him until he asked the question. So with question, there's an opportunity. And like I say this all the time, opportunity doesn't come but once. It comes every day. The day that you take advantage of opportunity, that becomes your once. Are you getting this? So the O in question is opportunity. When you ask, why is this like this? You're gaining opportunity to know better, to do better. So the O in question is opportunity. The N in question is a necessity. It is of necessity that you get to ask questions. You say a closed mouth is a closed destiny. It's of necessity that you get to ask questions. It's of necessity. Don't be timid. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Ask questions. It's of necessity that you ask questions. Like I said, the answer you seek is in the question you fail to ask. It's of necessity that you ask questions. And I've told you in this conversation so far that questions are more important than answers. And there are no right or wrong questions. They are just questions. So it's of necessity that you ask questions. Right? So this is our conversation for today. Question. 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 The quest, the understanding, the exposure, the satisfaction, the truth, the introspection, the opportunity, and the necessity. This, my friends, this is what makes question. Like I told you, questions are more important than answers. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? Great. So you see, now let's go deeper into questions, because questions help us get deeper. So let's go deeper into this conversation on questions, right? Let's go a bit deeper into conversation of questions. See this. There are three things about questions. Three things about questions that I want you to always remember. Number one, it combats ignorance. Nothing deals with ignorance like question. Question combats ignorance. It deals with your ignorance. See, you don't have to be an ignoramus. Just ask questions. Because questions combat ignorance. It deals with your ignorance. Nothing deals with your ignorance for you like asking questions. Nothing. Questions deal with your ignorance. You just realize how ignorant you have been the moment you ask a question. Right? The second thing is that it develops critical thinking. Asking questions help you to think critically. Remember I told you, it is one level for you to think. It's a higher level to get into critical thinking. Now, asking questions helps you develop critical thinking. So you don't just take what you are told, hook, line, and sinker. You think critically. You ask more questions. So asking questions helps develop critical thinking. Why is this like this? What's the purpose of this? Critical thinking, asking questions. It helps you develop critical thinking. The third thing about question is that it builds confidence. The reason why some people don't ask questions is that they lack the confidence to ask questions. They are shy, they are timid, they are afraid. They have no courage to ask questions. But you see, asking questions build your confidence. First in yourself, next in what you do. Because you're asking questions to gain clarity, understanding, and perspective. So it gives you courage. Notice that one of the things that is done to young people as they are growing up is that they stop their curiosity. They stop them from asking questions. They say, shut up, you're talking too much, you're asking too much questions. So that thing kills their curiosity. It kills their inquisitiveness. So they grow up as adults who don't ask questions. And they lack the confidence to not ask questions. So these are three things about questions. Number one, it combats ignorance. If you see someone who's ignorant, it's proof that person doesn't ask questions. Number two, it develops critical thinking. The more questions you ask, the more critical thinking minded you become. Number 3, it builds confidence. The one who asks questions is confident. It's not shy. It's not timid. It's confidence. It's bold. It has courage. So these are 3 things about questions. Now there are 2 traits. 2 traits of questions. And when you see these 2 traits, you know that this person always asks questions. Number 1, inquisitive curiosity. The first trait is inquisitive curiosity. Wanting to know, wanting to learn. Inquisitive curiosity. And number 2, courage. These are 2 traits for questions. Inquisitive curiosity and courage. It takes courage to ask. There are people who are dying in silence because they just can't ask. It takes courage to ask. You know, Bartimaeus was blind. He was on the street. He was a beggar. When he heard that Jesus was passing by, he mustered up courage to ask, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He mustered courage. And even when they told him to hush, he shouted even louder. 2 traits of questions: inquisitive curiosity and courage. These are 2 traits of question: inquisitive curiosity and courage. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? Now, the one goal of question is clarity. The goal of question is for you to gain clarity. The goal of question is for you to arrive at that point where you now know. Is to gain clarity. Where you are no longer riding on assumption. Because trust me, assumption is no knowledge. Some people say assumption is the lowest level of knowledge. I dare say that assumption is no knowledge. Why assume when you can ask? Because the goal of question is to gain clarity. You don't gain clarity in assumption. You gain clarity in asking question. Are you getting this? So don't assume, just ask. I see a lot of people, they get to assume. Don't assume, just ask. Because the goal of question is clarity. And you can never gain clarity in assumption. You only gain clarity when you ask a question. So ask, don't assume. Besides, when you assume, you make an ass of you and me. Assume. Are you getting this? Is this making sense to you? Now, there are 4 kinds of questions that you can ask. 4 kinds of questions. Right? There's the open question. It's called the open-ended question. Right? The question is open. There's the closed question, where the response is most likely yes or no. Don't ask those kind of questions. Right? Ask more of open questions that it leads to other areas, leads to other questions, other inquiry, not a closed question. A closed question always gives a yes or no response. Are you getting this? So you must learn the acts and the science of asking questions. And there are 4 kinds of questions. Number 1, there's the open question. That's opened. There's the closed question. There's the rhetorical question. These are questions that don't demand an answer. But they are questions. But they don't necessarily demand an answer. They are rhetorical questions. Questions you go back and think about. And then there are the leading questions. Questions that lead you into new perspective, lead you into new areas, leading questions. So these are 4 kinds of questions: open question, the closed question, the rhetorical question, and the leading question. To get good at asking open questions, rhetorical questions, and leading questions, but not closed questions. Because with a closed question, The response you always get is a yes or a no. That's not the kind of question you should be asking. Are you getting this? That's not the kind of question you should be asking. You should be asking open questions. You should be asking rhetorical questions that get people to think. Or you should be asking leading questions. Are you getting this? Now, why people don't ask questions? Because I've observed in the world that we live in today, people no longer ask questions. People are comfortable with no longer asking questions. Besides, outside of the fact that, while they were much younger, they beat them from asking questions. They get punished from asking questions, or they have been mocked while asking questions. So now they've grown up with that trauma, and now they choose not to ask questions. I'll tell you 3 reasons why people no longer ask questions. Number 1, the fear of looking stupid. The fear of looking stupid. You see, if I not ask this question now, how would they look at me after now? The fear of looking stupid. You must reframe this. It's not the fear of looking stupid that should be your concern. It should be your fear of remaining ignorant. Because what you know, you know. What you don't know, you don't know. So why people don't ask question number 1, the fear of looking stupid. If I ask now, how people don't look at me after now? What people say about me? That fear of looking stupid. Like I said, you're only a fool for 5 seconds when you ask questions. Or you're a fool for a lifetime when you don't ask questions. So why people don't ask questions? The fear of looking stupid. So reframe this. You're not looking stupid while you ask questions. You're helping yourself not to remain stupid. That's why you're asking questions. Second reason why people don't ask questions is the fear of being a burden. So if I ask questions now, we look like a burden to others. I look like a burden. You should challenge this. You are not a burden. You are wanting to remove your burden. That's why you're asking questions. Are you getting this? You are not a burden. You are wanting to remove your burden by asking questions. So challenge this. When they told Bartimaeus to hush, he shouted the more, because if this opportunity passes, he's going to remain blind for the rest of his life. Are you getting this? So the fear of being a burden is what stops people from asking questions. But you must challenge this. That not asking questions will not remove your burden. It is asking questions that will lift your burden. So challenge it. Ask questions. The third reason why people don't ask questions is the pace of modern life. Everybody's in a fast pace. At this point, slow down. So even if you win in the rat race, you are still a rat. Slow down. Slow down. The pace of modern life. Everybody is up and about, up and do it. Slow down. Ask questions. Our race is different. Our journey is different. Our fight is different. Slow down. Ask questions. These are 3 reasons why people don't ask questions. Number 1, the fear of looking stupid. And I told you, reframe this. You'll remain stupid for not asking. Number 2, the fear of being a burden. And I said, challenge this. You only lift your burden when you ask questions. And number 3, the pace of modern life. And I said, slow down. Slow down. Even the good book says the race is not to the swift. The battle is not to the strong. But time and chance happens to them all. Slow down. Right? You see, a question is a key that unlocks a door. Did you get that? Question is a key that unlocks a door. So ask questions. Ask questions. So it looks like if you are in a mansion and you just stay in the hallway and never get to explore what the mansion holds, the different rooms, the different areas in the mansion. Your question is a key that unlocks a door. Where does this lead to? What does this expose you to? Question is the key that unlocks a door. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? Right? See this, guys. Question encapsulates the 5WH. I'll say that again. Question encapsulates the 5WH, which is the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how. Question encapsulates the 5WH. The when, the who, the what, the where, the why, and the how. So it encapsulates all of this. Who, where, what, when, why, how. Question encapsulates the 5WH. And you see, question is the engine of growth. Not asking questions leads to stagnation, misunderstanding, and failure. Question is the engine of growth. I remember last week we talked about growth. And one of the things that helps you on that journey is question. Question is the engine of growth. And not asking question leaves you in stagnation, misunderstanding, and failure. Luke 15:17. And he came to himself and said, in my father's house, the servants have enough to eat and to spare. So why am I languishing in hunger? I will arise and go back to my father and say to my father, I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants. He asked himself a question and he changed the trajectory of his life. If he didn't ask that question, he probably would have died feeding with swine. He would have died in an unmarked grave. But that question changed everything for the prodigal son. See this, guys. That question you've not asked is why you have still remained where you are. It's as simple as that. Want to change your life? Ask question. You'll be shocked how your life will change just because you ask question. You will be shocked. Like you would be shocked how your life will change just because you ask question. See this, guys. I want you to know this. Take note of this. See, the danger of not asking question produces a high cost of silence. The danger of not asking questions produces the high cost of silence. See, ask a question, whether out of fear, out of pride, out of apathy, ask a question. Because it is not just a mental act, it is a decision with consequences that ripples downward, affecting your knowledge, your relationship, and your future. So you see, the danger of not asking questions has a high cost of silence. Choosing not to ask a question, whether because of fear, apathy, or pride, is not a mental act. It is a decision with consequences that ripples outward, affecting your knowledge, your relationship, and your future. You stand to lose a lot when you don't ask questions. I'll say that again. You stand to lose a lot when you don't ask questions. So it is in your best interest to ask questions. It's in your best interest. See, when you don't ask questions, let me tell you what happens to you. You remain stuck. You get into a situation and you will remain stuck because you don't ask questions. You remain stuck. This is why you should ask questions. So you don't remain stuck. Because when you don't ask questions, you will remain stuck. You just be in a place. You're stuck. Because you don't ask questions. When you don't ask questions, you would operate on a faulty assumption. Now, this is even worse. You are operating on an assumption, and even the assumption is still faulty because you don't ask questions. And I've told you this, assumption is no knowledge. Why assume when you can ask? When you don't ask questions, you would operate on a faulty assumption. And that is terrible for you. It's terrible. It is terrible for you to operate on a faulty assumption because you don't ask questions. Told you, when you don't ask questions, you remain stuck. When you don't ask questions, you operate on a faulty assumption. Very faulty assumption. When you don't ask questions, you will breed resentment. Why? Because you don't have clarity. You have resentment when you lack clarity. You're going to breed resentment because you don't ask questions. You don't know why XYZ has what they have. Ask questions. Lest you are going to breed resentment towards XYZ. Just ask. Just ask. Are you getting this? Just ask. Not asking questions will breed resentment in you. So ask. Ask. Even the good book says, ask and you will receive. Ask. Anyone who asks receives. Ask. Don't breed resentment. Just ask questions. Right? When you don't ask questions, you appear disinterested or arrogant. When you don't ask questions, you appear disinterested. You appear disinterested when you don't ask. So ask. Asking questions shows your level of interest. Ask. When you don't ask questions, you appear disinterested. So ask. Right? When you don't ask questions, conflict will escalate unnecessarily because there's no understanding. There's misinformation. There's miscommunication. When you don't ask questions, conflict will escalate unnecessarily because there's no clarity. Because there's no understanding, because there's no perspective. So conflict would escalate unnecessarily because you didn't ask questions. So this is why it's important that you ask questions. Ask questions. Because when you don't ask, conflicts will escalate unnecessarily, especially in relationships. Don't assume, just ask. Don't assume, just ask. I told you earlier, when you assume, you make an ask of you and me. Don't assume, just ask. So you can de-escalate the conflict. So when you don't ask questions, conflict will escalate unnecessarily. When you don't ask questions, you waste time and resources. You waste time and resources. Asking questions saves you time, saves you resources. wisdom to learn from those who have done thrice what you are trying to do once. I'll say that again. It's wisdom to learn from those who have done thrice what you are trying to do once. So when you don't ask questions, you will waste time, you will waste resources. When you don't ask questions, you will kill innovation and progress. You kill innovation. You kill progress. So asking questions is a pathway of growth. When you don't ask questions, you kill innovation, you kill progress. When you don't ask questions, you will propagate misinformation. You spread lies, you spread rumors, you spread gossip when you don't ask questions. So when you don't ask questions, you propagate misinformation. Propagate misinformation when you don't ask questions. When you don't ask questions, you would reinforce the status quo. I say this to people, and I say that tradition is nothing but peer pressure from dead people. Yes, tradition is nothing but peer pressure from dead people. So question the status quo. Question the status quo. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? There was a time they were killing twins in Nigeria. But thanks to Mary Celeste, who questioned the status quo. P-Square are twin. Perhaps they would not have existed today if it was still a time where they were killing twins in Nigeria. Someone questioned the status quo. Are you getting this? So when you don't ask questions, you reinforce status quo. You continue with tradition, which is nothing but peer pressure from dead people. So this is why you must be asking questions. So you either ask questions or remain ignorant. You either ask questions or you misunderstand your loved ones. You either ask questions or you make a costly mistake. You either ask questions or you watch the world be shaped by those who ask questions. See this. Do you know in scripture, the first question that was ever asked was in Genesis 3, verse 9. The first question God ever asked was, Adam, where are you? Now, prior to this time, Adam and Eve had just eaten the fruit. Their eyes had been opened. They saw that they were naked and they hid themselves from God. But when God showed up, the first question God asked, God the all-knowing, God who had seen what they had done, still came and asked questions. He said, Adam, where are you? Genesis 3:9. And Adam responded, I heard your voice in the garden, and I hid myself because I found that I was naked. And God said, who told you you were naked? Have you done what I told you not to do? You see, it was a question. God asked Adam the question, where are you? God knew where Adam was. He's all-knowing. He's all-seeing. But he didn't want to assume. He asked the question, Adam, where are you? Because prior to now, God will come in the cool of the day to have fellowship with Adam. Adam wasn't hiding before now. So when God showed up, Adam was nowhere to be found. He said, Adam, where are you? And you see in Genesis 4, verse 9, God asked Cain a question. After God had a conversation with Cain earlier and told him, if thou doest so, shall thou not be accepted? After Cain's sacrifice was rejected, and Cain went ahead to kill his brother, and God came to Cain and said, Cain, where is your brother? God knew, because he said the blood of Abel cried out for vengeance. So God knew that Cain had killed Abel. But yet God asked Cain a question. Where is your brother? Genesis 4, verse 9. Where is your brother? And Cain responded, am I my brother's keeper? You can use question to engage. You can use question to challenge. And you can use question to lead. I'll say that again. You can use question to engage. You can use question to challenge. And you can use question to lead. You can use question to engage people's mind. You can use question to challenge people's assumption. And you can use question to lead people to the truth. Jesus asked his disciples, who do men say that I am? And see, with this question, he engaged them, he challenged them, and then he led them to the truth. Who do men say that I am? Are you getting this? Is this making sense for you? Now, see this. You can ask questions from a place of trust, and you can ask questions from a place of doubt. See, how is this possible? Mary asked questions from a place of trust. He says, how shall this be, since I know not a man? That's from a place of trust. How shall this be? And she got her response. But Zechariah asked questions from a place of doubt, the father of John the Baptist. He said, how is this going to be possible? I'm already old. Elizabeth is old. How is this going to be possible? He asked a question from the place of doubt. So you see, you can ask questions from the place of faith and trust, and you can also ask questions from the place of doubt. But it's always best to ask questions from the place of trust and faith than from the place of doubt. Mary asked questions from the place of trust and faith, but Zechariah asked questions from the place of doubt. The angel to Zechariah, you'll be dumb until the child is born. You don't ask questions from the place of doubt. Ask questions from the place of trust. Are you getting this? Is this making sense? Now you see, asking question is a neurological workout. You see, you gym neurologically when you're asking questions. You say, how? I'll tell you. Asking questions activates your RAS, reticular activating system. When you ask questions, your RAS is activated. Are you getting this? When you ask questions, you are forcing neuroplasticity. Your brain is being rewired to do the work, to think. You are forcing neuroplasticity. Asking questions manages your dopamine. That feel good hormone when you ask questions. Your dopamine, it manages it. An asking question breaks down the mental wall that keep you stuck. So you see why I say asking question is a neurological workout. It's gymming for your mind because it activates your RAS, your reticular activating system. It forces neuroplasticity. Your brain is being rewired to think critically. And then it manages your dopamine, your feel-good hormone. And then it breaks down your mental wall that keeps you stuck. When you ask questions, you are breaking down that mental wall that keeps you stuck. See this. Question improves your thinking. And to think better, ask better. Question improves your thinking. To think better, ask better. And see this, guys. All learning begins with question. All learning begins with question. See why you should ask question. Every learning begins with question. See this, guys. If you question long enough, you will get an answer. Yes. If you question long enough, you get an answer. In Luke 18, tell us about the widow and the unjust judge. She kept asking questions. She kept asking questions. And the unjust judge says, I do not fear God, I do not fear man, but this widow is going to worry me out. I will grant her a request. Delilah kept asking Samson questions until Samson told her the secret of his strength. If you keep asking questions long enough, you will get an answer. You get an answer. If you keep asking your mind questions long enough, you will get an answer. Challenge with us today is that we cannot sit still, cannot slow down and ask our minds questions. Rather, we just want to get prompts. Ask AI. Ask your mind. Your mind is still the best AI ever. Ask your mind. Question your thoughts. Question your thinking. That's where your real intelligence lies, in your mind. And if you ask the question long enough, you will get an answer. Have you experienced this thing where you sit with a question long enough and the answer drops? It comes like a eureka moment. The answer drops. If you question long enough, you will get an answer. And you will get the right answer. The widow and the unjust judge in Luke 18, and Samson in Judges 16. You get an answer. Samson and Delilah in Judges 16. You get an answer. If you question long enough, you will get an answer. You will. See these guys. Deception and temptation starts with a question. Serpent told Eve, did God say? Deception and temptation starts with a question. Potiphar's wife told Joseph, come lie with me. Delilah asked Samson, what is the secret of your strength? Deception and temptation starts with a question. The devil asked Jesus, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. If you are, turn the stones into bread. Deception and temptation starts with a question. And also, innovation and inspiration also starts with a question. Innovation and inspiration also starts with a question. See, Moses saw the burning bush and he wondered, how is the bush burning yet the bush is not burnt? That led him to have the encounter with God. Scripture says, come, let us reason together. God wants you to ask questions. God is not insecure that he cannot answer your questions or doesn't want you to ask questions. No, ask your question. Ask your question. He says, come, let's reason together. Ask your question. You see this, guys? Question shows whether you have confidence or you lack confidence. And question shows whether you have security or you have insecurities. People who can't take questions because they have insecurities. Question shows your confidence or your lack of confidence. Question shows your security or your lack of security or your insecurity. Like I told you, the answer you seek is in the question that you fail to ask. The answer that you seek is in the question that you fail to ask. So, ask the question. Guys, this is it. This is the conversation for today. And this is something that I believe should help you in asking questions. And like I said, there are no right or wrong question. They are just questions. And ask question. It's for your own benefit. It's for your own good to ask question. Because you will gain clarity, understanding, and perspective when you ask question. But you always remain in the dark. You don't. So ask question. You have nothing to lose, but everything to gain when you ask question. So this, my friends, this is our conversation for now. And this is a call for you to ask question. So guys, this is it. This is it. This is it. Hope you learned something from this conversation. Hope you have something that you can apply in your own life after now to go out there and ask questions. And like I love to say, like I always tell us, 3 things will happen for us in this new week, right? 3 things will happen for us. 3 things will happen for us in this new week. Number 1, increased voice of God. Number 2, open heavens over your life. And number 3, more angelic activities in all that you do. Yes, that's it. This is where we draw the curtain for the conversation of today. I hope you've learned something. I hope this has helped you. I hope you, after now, go out and always ask question. Ask question. So, do well to always share this with your friends, your families, and your loved ones. Right? Share with them so they get to like, subscribe, and turn on post notification so they don't get to miss out on any of our conversation that we get to have here. I always say, share with your friends, your enemies, your loved ones, right? Share with your friends, your loved ones, and even your enemies. Share with them. You may just be helping them to become a better version of themselves, because that's what we get to do here. We help you to live good behind so that you can upgrade. And what better way for you to upgrade? For you to learn to ask questions. So guys, thank you so much for watching. See you again on another conversation. Until then, remember, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you that you live good behind so that you can upgrade. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.